Ready when you are, right?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, y'all. I'm Morgan Russelburg. I'm the Director of First Year Programs and a Student Success Coach here at Kentucky Wesleyan College. And this is my story. I grew up in church, going to youth group on Wednesdays, and I really loved the community that brought me. My mom was heavily involved in my faith life, but as I started college, that part of my faith life kind of dwindled as I got busier and being on campus and doing different things. I was a commuter student here at Wesleyan, so I graduated in 2014. And it took me a while to get involved. I was probably a sophomore before I really got involved on campus and doing different things. And so with my story, it's a lot about how God is in the details of all the little things that brought me to where I am today. And so a lot of that revolves around my job now, which I would consider to be a calling for my life. And so, anyway, I started, and as a sophomore, I got a work study position in admissions. And one day, the director of admissions walked up to me, and I'm pretty sure he just needed warm bodies to be ambassadors. But he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about being an ambassador?" And I said, "Well, I guess." I hadn't really ever thought about it. And I didn't, talking in front of people wasn't as scary to me as it used to be in high school, but it still wasn't my favorite thing to do. So I just was like, okay, sure, I'll do it. Had really no idea what that would bring. But that was the first God is in the details moment for me in my college career because that changed the course of my vocation, my life, my job, everything about what I was getting ready to embark on. So anyway, the goal for me was to be an attorney, and I interned for one the summer of before my junior year, and realized I did not want to do that. I was a super positive person. I still am, probably to a fault. But I realized I didn't love the paperwork. I just liked the court aspect of it. And the talking part. And so I thought, oh, this is probably not for me, and had this super huge, actually, career crisis because I had wanted to be an attorney since high school. And so one of the admissions counselors here said, Morgan, you do realize I get paid to do this job, right? Like, this is a career path. And so I started looking into graduate programs for higher ed, and I found one at Western Kentucky University. And so I applied for it thinking, like, oh, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I have to do something. And so I applied, and I was accepted to that program. And I still wasn't sure that I wanted to go. And so a lot of people were asking my senior year, like, what are you doing? And I was very iffy about it. And I remember kind of like, a lot of people have this big God moment where he shows up in their life in a really hard time. And for me, it was just a big decision. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was praying about it. And I remember sitting with my aunt at Real Hacienda here in Owensboro. And she said, so have you decided what you're going to do yet? And that was the first time that I had said out loud, I'm going to grad school for higher ed at Western. And it was like in that moment, I felt this huge amount of peace and content with that decision. And I think that was one of the biggest God moments in my life prior to having kids, that I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And so from that point on, the rest is kind of history. I went to Western, met one of my very best friends who works down the street at Brescia. And after my first semester, a job opened up here at Wesleyan. And I started working in admissions, and then I worked in student life, and then I worked in residence life as a residence director. Shout out to all my res life people. That's a rough job sometimes, but we loved it, and it was awesome. And I felt so fulfilled and like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And so God also had a huge hand in picking my husband. He's a wonderful man. He is like the perfect, I love to talk. He's kind of quiet. And so we balance each other out, and he brought me my husband and then my kids. And then all of a sudden, midnight movies were like, ugh, I don't know if I want to do that anymore with my life. So hanging out with students was wonderful. But, when it comes to being out late and having a new family, that wasn't really an option for me at the time. And so that best friend that I made in graduate school called me one day about a job in career services. And I thought, oh no, there is no way that I can help students pick what they want to do forever. That's a huge job. And I also got to be in that class in graduate school. So I'm not sure if that's something that I can do. And I just prayed about it. And I thought, this is what's best for my family. It's what's best for me, I think, at this point. And I hated leaving Wesleyan. But I did it. I took a leap of faith and just stepped out and took that position. And it was the best place for me whenever I had my kids. And so I loved helping students figure out what they wanted to do. That also brought me an opportunity to teach, which was a passion of mine before I started college. Um, and I just didn't know what I would teach in high school or like grade school, so I kind of let that fall to the wayside. And I was able to teach a freshman orientation section, and that brought back my passion for teaching and really connecting with students on that level. And then through career services, I was also able to teach junior achievement curriculum in grade schools, which was amazing, and I loved every second of it. And as I was there, I think about 2 years, I was also asked to take on disability services, which was very scary. I didn't have any experience working in disability services. No one in my family had a disability where we had to have an IEP or a 504 plan or anything like that, or accommodations. And I was just nervous that I wouldn't be able to help the students the way I wanted. But they needed someone, and I knew the students needed it, so I prayed about it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I did all the training and all the things, and I was very frustrated sometimes about all the workload and the things I didn't know and having to learn them. And then little did I know God was in the details of that too, because I needed that training because both of my kids would be born with some type of disability. And so my oldest son had an abnormal brain scan, and so he has some learning disabilities. And then my youngest was born profoundly deaf, and he has cochlear implants. And so that job did all the things to prepare me to not be completely freaked out when we got those diagnoses for my kids. Not to say I wasn't stressed, and that's a whole other stories in Seven about the details of those situations, but it really helped, prepare me for what that was going to be like with my kids. And so God was in the details there too. It wasn't this big thing, but it was this thing he asked me to do, and I did it, and it prepared me for something else. And so in October, well, I guess it was August of last year, I had a friend call me about this position, and I was nervous because I had been in my other one for 5.5 years, and I love my coworkers, but I also knew my heart is at Wesleyan as an alum, and Wesleyan was my first choice for college. I didn't apply anywhere else, and so I was excited to be back. And after all the interviewing and praying, I thought, I'm just going to take the leap, and we're going to do it. And being here has been the culmination of everything that I think God has called me to do. Bringing me here to be the director of first year programs, which I gained a passion for in my other position, teaching freshman orientation or freshman seminar courses. I still get to do that here. And I get to connect with students who are struggling academically, or maybe even struggling with decisions to stay at Wesleyan, or what they want to do with their life or in their personal lives. And I get to connect with those students and work with them and build relationships every day, which I think is what I'm supposed to be doing, at least in this moment of my life. And so I think for me, the main point of my story is that, God is in my life in a big way, but it's because of all of the little details along the way that led me to my job, that led me to my kids, my husband, this job that I have now, the jobs I had previously that taught me what I needed to know. And so I think, for those of you listening or watching, it's important that if you don't have this huge God moment in your life, that doesn't mean he's not there. Take a moment to write your story down. And when I was preparing for this, I wrote all the God moments in red. And I was amazed at how many times I was like, wow, that moment changed my life. So I think if you can write it down, that will help you see it. And it doesn't have to be this huge thing. And I'm Morgan Russelburg, and that's my story in 7-ish, I hope. Thanks.